Whoa, hello Echo. How are
Feedback,
you?
feedback.
I feel like I'm on Jocko podcast saying hello Echo. Alright, so we're live on YouTube. I am live on Instagram. Just waiting on you to join. Just thinking about it. But go ahead and kick it off since we're live. This will be kind of a semi. Probably shouldn't go short on this one because of the topic, but life calls, so we're gonna get it kind of short. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, we got a lot of time. We got a lot of material to cover in a short amount of time, so we're going to go ahead and get right to it. So today we're going to talk about the things you should do before you carry, maybe before you purchase your first firearm, and then after you get your. I'm still on Instagram. Okay, I thought it dipped me off for a second. And then what you should do after you get your first firearm. So this thing is kind of based around that you're someone who hasn't grown up with a gun, that that hasn't been a big part of your your family or upbringing. Maybe you're new to them. Maybe you've been around firearms. Maybe you haven't been around handguns, which was kind of my case. I didn't get into handguns until I was older, even though we grew up around firearms. So, and there's a lot of stuff you just don't know until you're doing it. So, anyway, the first thing I want to talk about is the things you should. Feedback. Oh, all right, maybe we're good now. The first thing we want to talk about is the things you should do before you ever get a firearm and before you decide that you're going to carry. And the first one I want to talk about is being, having really good decision making skills. So what I mean by that is that before you're going to make the decision that you're going to carry a firearm around day, you need to make sure that you're making good decisions on a regular basis. So this means things like not drinking and driving. This means things like not constantly getting in fights with your girlfriend or spouse and storming out of the house. This means being able to make good decisions about it's 2 a.m. Probably right now is not the time to go to an ATM. Are we still getting feedback?
A little bit.
Good? Okay. All right.
Yeah, go
If
for it.
I'll put my phone further away. Okay, there we go. So
There you go.
and that's the first thing you need to do, because ultimately, I think in every state, 21 to carry a firearm. There's no magic. It's just like the drinking age. There's no magical number that you become mature enough to be able to adequately use a firearm. It's your decision making skills. There's some people that are 50 years old I wouldn't trust with a toothbrush, let alone a firearm. And there's some 18, 19-year-olds that are squared away and they know what they need to do. So that's the first thing, is that you need to make sure that you're going to be you're making good decisions and you're pretty emotionally stable. The second thing I want to say before you carry a firearm is that you need to be willing to kill. Now, I know a lot of people don't like to use that term. Like for some reason, for whatever, our culture has deemed violence as a bad thing. Violence is not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes the only way you can stop violence is with violence, and you have to be willing to understand that killing is a part of self-defending. Because if someone's going to escalate to the point that they want to kill you or a family member or someone that you're with, probably the only way you're going to stop them is killing them. It is if you do find yourself in a life or death situation, it's very possible that it's going to be very visceral, very gory. It's not going to be like the Westerns. You're going to shoot someone, they're going to clench their chest and fall over. It could be a real deal thing. And I think that that's something it's a very personal thing, moral, religious, whatever reasons. You need to make sure you're okay that you can take a life. And because at the moment, you're not going to have time to decide that. You're going to have to jump in it and do what you need to do. So you need to be willing to take a life to end someone's life. Are you okay with that? If your answer is no, then I would say maybe you need to have some less than lethal options. I can't sit there and tell another man or another woman or whoever that they say I can't kill another person. That's their opinion. I know that's not an issue that I have, but if you don't need to be carrying a firearm if you cannot take another life. So that's the second thing that you need to be prepared to do before you get a firearm. The third thing that I think that you need to be prepared is you need to be able to check your ego. This kind of goes back to the first one as far as decision-making skills, but understand that once you get a firearm, the road rage, like, you're going to have to just walk away from it. somebody catcalls your girlfriend or wife when you're out and about eating, you're going to have to walk away from it. You know, the worst case scenario is you get into a road rage accident and two people are exchanging words, and you know you're a cheesehead and whatever, you know, of whatever you're throwing back and forth, and you say, okay, I'm gonna show this guy something. You whip, you clear leather on the old smoke wagon, whip that thing out. All of a sudden, you're brandishing. The other guy's got a carry permit too, and he sees the gun out. He clears it. You guys exchange gunfire, and now two of the good guys have just killed themselves over a road rage incident. So you got to be able to check that ego. That's something that you can't have. It's not easy. I know I've been in situations where I didn't like it. Hunter, me and you had a conversation about something that happened when you were out west, and you know I've been there too. And it's not an easy thing to handle, but it's something you're going to have to do before you move forward to think about carrying a firearm. Is that it's a very serious thing. The fourth one I'm going to say is that you need to understand that the gun is not always the answer to everything. Most of the time, it's not the answer. There's a very small window that the firearm is the right thing, but when it is, it's the only thing that's going to work. Most of the time, the old Nike defense is the best thing you need. Either the pedal all the way on the right on the car, or lacing up those tennis shoes a little tighter and taking off. Those are usually the best things to do. Everybody throws that thing around there all the time, like verbal judo. That's not. Hey man, I'm sorry, I cut you off. My bad. I apologize. It's completely my fault. Do you know how many lives that would probably save a year in the United States? That statement right there, probably a lot. That kind of goes back with the ego, but you have to understand that the firearm is not always the answer. It's like a fire extinguisher in a very specific role. It works great. But if someone's drowning, the fire extinguisher is probably not going to help them. So keep that in mind. That's the best analogy that I know. That kind of goes back to your talk about medical this weekend. Same thing falls in there. If someone's bleeding profusely, I don't think putting 9mm bullets into the hole is going to help them. So anyway, so those are the kind of things that I think you need to think about before you consider carrying. Sit down and have an honest conversation with yourself. Look at do I think I'm mature enough to carry? Do you think you have the mindset? And we talk a lot about mindset and things, and I'm glazing over that right now for sake of time, but because mindset's a whole nother animal. But do you have the mindset to carry? Because it is going to be an ongoing thing. You're going to change your opinion about stuff. You're going to change the way you look at things. But do you have the mindset? And just be willing to do some research. That's the last one I'll say, is that you're never a master. You're always going to be a student. If you decide to carry, realize that you're starting out as a Padawan down here, and that there's going to be a lot of info along the way that you'll get. You're not going to have all the answers, but have some humility, remove your ego, and read as much, ask as much questions. The internet's a dangerous place. You can get way more answers than probably you won't, but use it as a resource in the good way. Before we move on to the next one, Hunter, do you have anything to add? And go.
Yes, I actually have. That was awesome, man. It was like a freedom shotgun right there. Maybe it's a Starbucks. I don't know. So I've actually got four.
It's Nitro Brew for
tonight. That stuff is unbelievable. I still haven't got a good Nitro Brew since we were in Savannah. Anyway, that's another subject for another day. So I've actually got 4 points. Kind of same. It's kind of funny, the parallels. We kind of very briefly talked about this yesterday, and it's really funny though because man, some feedback over here. Anyway, it's really funny though because we kind of referenced some of these, but they're some of the ones even that we didn't talk about are kind of along the same lines. So mine, I'll just hit them real kind of quick. Is comfort and function, and I kind of think they're one and the same. You got to figure out. It's very similar to like when we talked about meal prep and really anything for that matter. You got to figure out what works for you, what's comfortable, and what's functional, and kind of figure out where that line in the middle is of comfort and function. If you for example, you can walk around all day with your shirt untucked. It's your job. You're good to go. you even work in a dynamic, possibly changing environment, changing location, etc., where you're in different places. Me, I'm static. I'm on the same piece of property, same little area of operation every day. I have a dress code I have to follow with my shirt's tucked in, etc. I can't carry a thigh rig freaking Glock 23 or whatever. I just can't do it. So you got to figure out what's functional, and at the same time, and I know that what's his name, Clint Smith, would probably roll over right now if you heard me say it. But you got to figure out what's kind of comfortable too, because that's the reason I went with the Shield versus a Glock 19 or other. Is because what's the old saying? A bird in hand's worth two in the bush. If something's comfortable, you're going to carry it. If that's a slightly, don't go crazy, but if that's a slightly diminished round count, if you got it, I'd rather have 8 in my hand than 100 in the truck. And that's the reason I went with the Shield versus the Glock 19, is simply because it's hot. I wear short shorts and, I wear as little as possible. I hate hot weather. So I know I shocked you the other day walking out with Ranger panties, but either way, like comfort, function, that whole dynamic right there, you got to find a sweet spot and figure out how to scratch both of those backs at the same time. The second one.
Pause you there. Can I pause you there for a second, if you don't mind?
Yep.
Okay, sorry. Are the next ones you have, are they related to before you get the firearm? Because I'm trying to break it up into 3 like things you should have before you even decide to carry. I'm not trying to. Sorry.
One of them is kind of hits both. How about this? I'll go to my number 4 point, and it's kind of a dual purpose, but it kind of is before, I think, and you didn't necessarily touch on it, but I'll throw it out there. And honestly, you will probably be. We got 2 different sides of the same coin. I'll just hit it. This is kind of a before, during, and after. Whether it be a gun, a knife, or whatever it is, you kind of touched on it, is the lifestyle and family communication. So when we were in Savannah, I don't know if you remember this or not, there's a car that cut us off. And the first thing that anybody wants to do is press the middle of that steering wheel, that one that goes, wonk. And you remember, she hit it. And what did I say? I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. Because why? Remember what I said? I said, you ain't the one that's got to get out and fight this guy. Or worse, when we were in the woods, what we talk about. Remember that? Same kind of situation. And then the dude in Seattle that was having a bad day, that's what I'm going to go with at least, that just straight up wanted to get down in the middle of the street. And it's a lifestyle. You have to realize the severity of it before you get it, during and after you get it, because you got a gun, man. And I'm not saying be afraid of it or anything like that, but it's a big deal. It's serious. It's very serious. I mean, think about a case of mistaken identity. You got to go through scenarios in your head. And that goes into one of my other ones, but think about all the good, bad, and indifference consequences of carrying. Think about that beforehand. Think about how you would handle those situations beforehand. And if you are not comfortable taking this responsibility on, you might want to reconsider or go get a level of training to where you get to a level of competency where you are comfortable taking on these, whether it be legal counsel or the thought of taking a life or all that type of stuff. Get to that point where you're more comfortable with it. And the other part too is the family communication. I've got some family members, some more on my in-law side than not, that are the antithesis. They are the opposite of myself when it comes to political beliefs, their stance on firearms and that whole bit. Whatever, I don't care. Okay, I'm not here on this planet to debate politics. But if I go and visit them, they are grossly uncomfortable with me having a firearm on my person. To the extent it's kind of caused some, I won't say some issues in the past, but it's come up. Hey, do you have your gun with you? Well, yeah, I have my pants on. Do you mind leaving it in the car? And then it's kind of well, I do mind leaving it in the car, because we're in an urban environment and I'm not comfortable here. So what you have to figure out with that is that family communication. If you're married or whatever, you and your spouse or significant other have to be on the same page, because you got to realize if you're in a traffic stop, if you're at your cousin's house or uncle's house, you really need an alliance when it comes to the fact that you're carrying a gun and things are different now. So you need an alliance with that. The other part too, and you're probably more qualified than anybody on this, if you have kids running around the house, you know, that brings a whole new dynamic into the firearm game. So lifestyle and family communication, I know we're kind of trying to keep it short. You could write a book on that, but when you carry a gun, things are different. You're not the same as you were. The stakes are a lot higher in a million different levels. So you got to change your lifestyle. Make sure you're squared away. Don't do stupid stuff. Think hard about it. I know how hard it is. I secretly am a hothead. I've had people call me things, call my wife things, call other people things, and I'm ready to go and just rip their arms off and beat them to death with it. Like, it's the hardest thing in the world. Be in the car, like, about to break the steering wheel off. You'd be so mad. But it's not, it ain't worth it, man. It's not worth it. Like, you literally have to repeat it out loud to yourself. It ain't worth it. It ain't worth it. It ain't worth it. But the lifestyle changes you have to make, and the family, or you could even say just your tribe communications. You got to talk to the people around you and get them in the know that, hey, I got a gun on me. I'd love to go down there to that party, but man, I don't know those people. Things might get rowdy, and I don't need to go down there. But that's my two for kind of before and during.
Yep. And also just want to say, that doesn't mean don't live a little bit. That doesn't mean there's not times you cannot have a gun on you. You know, wakeboarding, I've never wakeboarded with a firearm on me before. Probably won't try it. Unless it was the AR, that'd be pretty cool. But anyway, yeah. So going right on to the next one. So we're going to go into the next part of, okay, you've sat down, you've had those conversations with yourself, you've done an honest assessment. Maybe you've talked to some family members, people that are close to you, people you deal with every day, and said, okay, this is what I'm thinking about doing. And you said, okay, I'm ready to get a firearm. Now we're assuming that you don't have anything and you're going to have to go out and buy something that, like most people do. You may inherit something, maybe it's a graduation gift, and you don't get to choose. But for the sake of argument, we're going to say that you're picking it out. So what do you need to go get? So my first recommendation to someone is going to be, number one, you need to get a handgun from a reputable manufacturer in one of the common service calibers, 9, 40, or 45. I don't recommend really anything else. Please, dear God, don't go get a rimfire. So you need 9, 40, or 45. I don't care much about the caliber debate. Any of those are good. The FBI has used them at one point or another. All three of those calibers, just about every police department in the United States has used one of those calibers at one point or another during the last, 50 years. They've used them. They're all adequate. I guarantee you your ability to place the rounds where you need to put them is going to matter more than the particular caliber that you chose to carry that day. And then secondly, probably the actual ammunition choice as far as the bullet design is going to matter, more than what caliber you chose to get. So for a lot of people, my recommendation to 98% of the population, if I didn't know much about you, would be look at the polymer frame striker fired handguns to start out with, either like G19 size, and I'm using that, it doesn't have to be a Glock, but G19 size down to the single stacks. The single stacks are they're very popular. You mentioned the reason that you got it is the form factor work, that you had enough, you felt like it was adequate rounds in a form factor that you could carry and keep on your person. I agree wholeheartedly about that. We'll touch base on that in a little bit. The second thing is, a lot of people don't realize is that when you get a handgun, especially if you get something beyond the size of a pocket pistol, is that you're buying a system. You're not buying a handgun. Yes, you buy a handgun, but you're also buying a handgun, and now you're going to need a holster for it. And if the gun is much bigger than probably a shield, you're probably going to need to upgrade the belt that you use, dependent on, you know, your body type and how heavy the firearm is. As the firearm gets larger and as the firearm gets heavier, your belt matters more. So don't think of it as just you're buying a firearm. You're buying a carry system, which is going to consist of a firearm. It's going to consist of a holster. It's going to consist of a belt. And then if you choose to carry some sort of magazine, a spare magazine holder, whatever, that's going to roll into it. So consider that it's a, you know, it's a system. So those are things. The next one is ammunition. So I'm not talking about training ammunition. I'm talking about the stuff that the people ammo, the stuff that you're going to load in there to put holes in people that you hopefully never have to use, but if you have to do it. Okay. It makes no sense to go purchase a $600 handgun and then go put Full Metal Jacket rounds in it. Please don't do that. Please, please, please don't do that. Go shoot paper with it all day long. You know, go out to the farm and shoot. Go to the local indoor range. But I'm not going to get too deep in the weeds here. Get a proven ammunition that is used by a law enforcement agency. The two that I can think of off the top of my head are Spear Gold Dots or Federal HSTs. You can't go wrong with either one of them. They're both on the FBI approved list in any of the common service calibers. Don't get the G2 RIP. Don't get the Extreme Penetrator 5000 liquidated damages Spiritron. That's not what you want. Get some good quality carry ammo. The next thing I would say is that the next two are, don't fall for the gun store salesman. It has been my experience, there are some really knowledgeable guys that work at gun stores out there. There are a lot of buffoons that work there too. Do your research online, know exactly what you want before you go in there. You know, read the reviews, and the more reputable that person is, the more I believe them. But you're going to see a common theme. The guys that really know what they're talking about, there's only about 5 or 6 handguns they recommend. There's probably a reason why. Okay? So that you'll notice that the more you read, the narrower it gets. The second thing is, if you have a female in your life that you are trying to get care of, she's asking you for, and if there's females reading this, okay, the gun doesn't need to be cute. It doesn't need to be Tiffany blue. It doesn't need to be pink. It doesn't need to be small framed or whatever. Because the worst thing that you can do is go get an airframe, a scandium framed Smith & Wesson J frame and put 38 special plus P's in it and give it to a female to shoot, because it's the longest, heaviest trigger pull ever in the existence of man, and it will sting the palm of your hand. I mean, I'm not a big guy by any means, but it sucks shooting one of those. They're not fun at all. And you're going to give it to her, and she's going to be like, no, I ain't doing this. Where you could, you know, it doesn't need to be cute. Give her something that she can adequately carry. I know that females have a whole different set of parameters that they need to carry. They don't dress the same as guys. I couldn't even begin to give you advice on that because I'm not a female. But if you have a female in your life, or you're a female watching this, there's no special female guns. That's what I want to say. There's no special female guns. You can shoot the same thing a guy can. You should shoot the same thing a guy can. They're unisex. It's like the bathrooms in North Carolina, one size fits all. Okay? So I think that was all I had for the before you carry. Or when you purchase.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I couldn't agree more with that. You know, my wife, she just kind of started carrying two years ago, maybe. Anyway, and that we kind of had that discussion, and it's funny because I just saw a post on, I don't know, Instagram, Facebook, or something, and someone was talking about it. It said, "Please tell me you didn't get the one that looked pretty." You know, you can almost equate this. I hope I'm not getting way too redneck on you here. You can almost equate this to like fishing. There's two types of lures. There's lures that catch fish, and there's lures that catch fishermen. And it's kind of the same way. I don't care if you're a Glock 43 lover, and there's a Tiffany blue Glock 43, go for it. Like, go for it. That's fine with me. I don't care if you got rhinestones in the sights, like whatever. But that goes back to kind of it's exactly what you were saying. It's kind of what I was saying too. The comfort function paradigm. You have to figure out what you're gonna use, what's functional, and just kind of shoot in the middle of that, find that sweet spot. Because just like you said, nobody's gonna have a hog leg, massive full size Desert Eagle if they're wearing, like if they're a teacher or something and they got, no belt and capri pants every day. So you gotta figure that out. And man, so many people. There's been a lot of guns sold just because they were pink. And if it's a good reputable firearm, that's one thing. But don't buy just off of looks. And the other part too. The only thing I'll add about that. And I have been in this situation before. And there's a lot of people that are. And I'm not knocking anybody because everybody's at a different point in their life. Is when it comes to a gun, it's one of the beautiful parts about firearms is the fact that they're not like a car in the sense where they massively depreciate. If you go and buy a gun 3, 4, 5 years from now, you can probably get close to new money for it if you decide to sell it. It's really not a place. If you think about what that tool is for, it's really not a place to cut corners and try to save a few dollars. You're better off spending the money on the right gun rather than trying to save money and just kind of going with something that's affordable. And I know that everybody's at a different point in their life, and everybody's got a different situation. But the take home is don't buy a damn high point. But nonetheless, get what's right for you. Spend the money, get the right gun, and just figure out what's functional for you.
Oh, one more. I want you to, if any of you guys are watching right now, and you got an Uncle Mike's, go ahead and take it out. I want you to ball it up in a little ball. I want you to take it outside and light it on fire. Don't buy Uncle Mike's holsters.
Don't do that.
Don't do it. Friends don't let friends buy Uncle Mike.
The guy, I meant to tell you about this. Monday night, I stopped by the trash dump my trash off. There's this old dude that works there.
This is going to be good.
Oh, yeah, this is awesome. Old dude that works there. This guy is like in rough shape. One of these guys you look at and you're like, how are you still alive? He just looks terrible. Rough, man. Big, massive. It's not even a bumper sticker. This is like it's probably 4x18 or 6x18. Huge, like a massive bumper sticker on the back glass of his truck. It says, what is it? What is it? Damn it. LHO or something. Licensed handgun owner. Like that's some acronym. Anyway, it's got like a picture that's like 1911 on it. Pull up, hop out of the truck, and drop my trash off. This dude has got a Uncle Mike's, I don't know if it's Uncle Mike's, but I'm telling you, it wasn't Kydex. This dude's got like an Uncle Mike's, like fabric holster, and he has got like the Roy Rogers 6-shooter special hanging out of this damn thing. And no retention, just a fabric, like soft holster. And I just was like, man, look at you. Like not enough words to even say, but I was like, that's awesome. But I mean, whatever. There's a lot of old guys that'll shoot you, but I don't know. I saw that and I immediately thought about you, and like I could have got a picture, but I was like, man, how ape that?
I wish you could roll in. We got to keep moving on, but I really wish we could roll in pictures like while we're doing this. So I could just because I have a picture of that guy at Greensboro that had that mare's leg that he carried as the lever action pistol that he kept on his side. Anyway, somewhere I got to go dig that out. All right, so the last one coming in is, okay, you sat down, you decided that, okay, carrying a firearm is right for me. You went through all that. You went through the shopping process of it. You've got the gun. You've got a belt and a holster that's going to work for you. We're not even going to talk about all the different systems, whether it's appendix, strong side, inside waistband, outside waistband, pocket carry, off body carry. It's a different show. We could run this thing 6 hours long. We don't have time for it. But you've made that decision. Now you've got this firearm. What do I do? Okay, I've got it. What do I do? Number one, first thing is you need to make sure that you've got your concealed weapons permit first. Okay. And I meant to add this one before you carry, and so I'm adding an addendum back to that. So in the state that I live in, I don't think it is the state for you live in, Hunter, but the state that I live in, you're required to do an 8-hour class before they'll issue your CWP. Actually, that class is pretty good because they go over a lot of the legal things of what you can and can't do with your firearm, where you can and can't take it, as far as, justifiable use of deadly force, et cetera, et cetera. So the first thing that I'm going to say is that, number one, you need to make sure your CWP is squared up in order and good to go. The next thing is, this actually goes before you carry, before you ever buy the firearm, et cetera, is that you need to understand your state's laws, where you live. You also need to understand the laws of the states that you frequently travel to or that you plan to travel to. The states that, for instance, that I have in South Carolina, I know the laws for it. I know where I can and cannot carry it. I know what I need to do should I have to interact with a police officer. I know, basically the do's and don'ts of that firearm. The adjacent states, North Carolina and Georgia, for those, I happen to know those too because I looked them up. I travel to them sometimes, not as much as I used to. Well, yeah, I still travel to them a good bit. So anyway, you need to know those because you don't want to get caught. Well, in South Carolina, because I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now, you roll into Georgia and you do some of the things you do in South Carolina, you can tell the nice state trooper all you want to is he's putting matching stainless steel bracelets on you. That the way we do it in South Carolina is et cetera, because they don't care. That's their state, their laws. They get to choose. So make sure you're understand that. And I think this courses were great. All right, so back to it. You got the firearm. You've said, okay, now what do I do? So the first thing that you need to do when you get that firearm is you just need to go ahead and you need to sign up for some training. Now, I'm not talking about the NRA 4-hour handgun course. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about some training from an instructor that knows what they're talking about. You can do it for a pretty affordable price. I think that most will have an introductory class that's going to cost you about $150 for an 8-hour course. That's kind of the going rate around here in the Southeast. Maybe a little more if you're up north or something like that. It's money well worth it. I had been shooting IDPA and some other stuff for a decent amount of time before I ever took the first handgun course. I learned a lot. It was worth every bit of the money that I paid for it. I can't do that enough. That's especially true if you're not really that familiar with handguns. So sign up for that course. In the meantime, first thing you do is you need to function check that firearm. You need to make sure it's going to run it through adequate amounts of ammo. You need to make sure you need to run some of that defensive ammo that we talked about. I know it's expensive. I'm not asking you to run 1,000 rounds of Gold Dot through your new gun, but you need to make sure it's going to function with what you have, what you're deciding to carry with it. It would suck to buy a $1,300 1911 only to find out in the middle of your ATM robbery that, it doesn't feed hollow points. Oops. So anyway, that's the next one, is that you need to run some ammo through and make sure that, from a reliability standpoint that it's going to be good to go. All right. Is this thirdly, fourthly, whatever the next bullet point is? You need to have an honest assessment of yourself, and this is a standard I like to tell people to do. Is you need to put just go to Dollar General, whatever, Family Dollar, get you a 8-inch paper plate and put it up. Now I want you to put let's say 5 rounds in the handgun. I want you to start at a distance of 5 feet. Slow fire. I'm talking about slow fire. This is not it. Start from the ready. Get out on the sights, whatever. Slow fire. Put 5 rounds in that plate and work back in 10-foot increments until you no longer can put all 5 rounds on that paper plate. That's your threshold. That's your threshold. Period. Whatever you can do, slow fire. If it's 10 yards, fine. If it's 25 yards, fine. It doesn't matter where you start. You're gonna work on from that. So, that's your threshold. But you realize that if 15 yards is your max, it's not like all of a sudden on game day that you got to make that like perfect shot. Like you're all of a sudden going to get better. It's not going to work. This is the way it works. Another good one that that I like to tell people is make sure I'm saying this right. Yeah, at 5 yards, 5 rounds, and 5 seconds onto that same 8-inch paper plate. So draw, come out of whatever holster system, however you're carrying it, press out, 5 shots, 5 rounds into that. And those are the standards you can kind of work towards. That's nothing crazy. That's not anything, but that kind of gets you to a standard. And then there's a lot of stuff that you can do at home without firing around to get better. We've talked about dry fire a lot, especially your draw presentation, because half of the battle is actually being able to get a gun into play should you need to. You'll hear a lot of people who were involved in incidents talk about that actually getting a gun out and getting it into a point, to a place or, where they could actually use it has sometimes been an issue, especially if you're not standing. If you're sitting on your back, on your stomach, those are things that they don't cost you a dime. Caveat to that, follow all 4 of the firearm safety rules. Don't have any ammo in the gun for dry firing. Keep the ammo in a separate room. Do it in a safe manner. If you're going to dry fire, especially in your residence, don't be sending rounds to the house. That's not a good thing at all. And then the last thing is like after you get that firearm is try to look. We're all busy, and financially you may not have a lot of money to spend on ammo. I get it. Like there's bills to be paid, and I understand it. For me, it's a hobby. It's something I like to do. Some people play golf. I don't know, build model trains. I mean, if I have, some spare time, spare money, I like to shoot, among other things. It's not the only thing, but, that's something that I enjoy. But, the fact of the matter is that you're not going to get good at it without doing it. It's just like anything else. Somebody who plays golf, they get better at golf by playing golf. I mean, driving range is part of it or whatever, but there's a lot of things you can do to improve it, be familiar with firearm without firing any rounds. But you have to, I mean, if that means that you say, okay, 3 times a year, I'm going to go out and shoot, at least you got a plan instead of just, I'll do it when I get some time. Maybe, if it's 3 times a year and you're going to out and shoot 100 rounds, okay, at least you've got a kind of a scheduled training schedule, and those are really the big, Hunter, if you want to take it from there.
No, I mean, those are awesome points. And, some stuff, the only thing really I would add that the 2 points that I have, they're kind of parallel to that, is probably the biggest one without going in the rabbit hole is, and this is with shooting, this is with anything, the better your fitness level is, the better you're going to be at any of this. Because if you ever look up, anything to do with firearms is, let's face it, if it's 2 o'clock in the morning and you made this stupid decision to go to an ATM, or you decide to take a shortcut, you're walking down that back alley, and somebody jumps out at you, what's the first thing that happens? Your adrenaline dumps, your heart spikes, and high stress, right? What's the chances that you're going to be wearing a heavy coat you can't get to your gun? What's the chances it's going to be really cold? It might be raining. You may have just had a wreck. Who knows? That's kind of ties into my second one. But the better shape you're in, the better aerobic capacity you have, the better chance you have of being able to perform at that time, because you have the physicality to handle that, because your body is prepared for it. So, there's I'm not sure the number, but I'm pretty sure there's multiple accounts of people out there that have been in gunfights, whether it be in self-defense or especially, matter of fact, how about this? I know of one that happened close by, like 20 minutes from here, back about 3 or 4 years ago. It was at a McDonald's. A guy pitched a fit, big fight, and the officer cleared leather on the guy, and the guy rushed him for some reason. He froze, and the officer that was with this guy had a heart attack and died. That was like 20 minutes from here. So that was a police officer, which they should be professionals at it, right? Well, what happens when it's you or me, and we're just an average old dude that just decided to carry a gun, and somebody jumps out at me and you and my wife and my kids and blah, 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 and I'm the guy that's got to step up to the plate here, but I like the Big Macs a little too much. Your heart had never got over 120 in the last 2 years, and now it's all of a sudden is full tilt. The better your fitness level, the better you're going to be able to handle this. And, you know, you referenced too that a gun's not always the answer. There's always a chance that you're going to have to fight this guy, whether you want to or not, because that's the beautiful part of these situations is you don't really get to decide the when and the where, but you maybe can influence the how. The other point that I got on this is stress inoculation. We talked about this yesterday, and I'm scared to even talk about it because I jinxed myself. Is I have been in situations where with the fire department where you go from 0 to 200 just like that, and even the simplest of tasks become difficult. One of my first ever fires, I always like to joke and pick on myself at this, is I was trying to put my boots and pants on to go towards the fire, and I literally, something as simple as putting on a pair of pull-on boots, I tripped right up and just ate dirt, slid down in the ditch face first because I was so jacked up. My adrenaline was pumping, my heart was pumping, I'm ready to go, but I couldn't even put pull-on boots on. Who can't do that? But I tell you who can't do that. Somebody that's level 10 freaking out because they're trying to go. When that moment happens, you're like we've talked about so many times, you're not going to rise to the occasion. You're going to fall back to your highest level of competency, your highest level of training. And that's where that dry fire practice comes in. That's where squeezing off comes in. That's where clearing that shirt comes in. That's where all of that stuff comes into play, muscle memory. The other part of that too is I don't know how I got into it, but it's helped me a lot to kind of be able to read people, and I hope I never have to use it, but it's helped me a lot to be able to kind of mentally prepare myself. And you kind of referenced it, I think, first off the bat is, and it goes into stress inoculation, is watching videos of self-defense encounters, because if you're unlucky enough, you may encounter one life or death, clear the holster, pull the trigger, you know, deal with all that stuff. If you're unlucky, maybe once in a lifetime, maybe. Hopefully, I pray that no one ever has to. That could be great, but that's not necessarily reality. But there's a lot of surveillance video, cell phone cameras, you know, body cameras on police officers of these incidences. And the more, in my opinion, the more that you can see of them, the better mentally, possibly even emotionally prepared you're going to be for them, because it's not the first time you've been in that situation, because you've seen that happen before. And when things escalate to that level, it's not going to be totally unbelievable. And I know that may sound kind of naive, but I think it's active self-protection, Facebook and YouTube, great stuff. I think it's John. He does some amazing breakdowns on there. Badge cams is really good. They got some. They're more police oriented, but really good stuff on there. I think Ready Man on Facebook, maybe YouTube, really good stuff on there too. They put out videos at least once a week. You can go on there and subscribe to those, and that'll get you kind of at least thinking of things that you need to be looking at. Because when a police officer stops someone and they're asking to see hands, they're watching, you know, physical cues and those kind of pre-fight indicators, those type things. Honestly, those are things that, going back to lifestyle, those are things that really, truly everyone should be looking at all the time. Because, and I'm not saying to engage that person, but if you go in a bank in July and a dude comes walking in with a hoodie on and the hood's up over his head and he's got a do-rag down around his neck,
you might want to think
about, what's that?
That I think the FBI calls that a clue.
Right, that's what I'm saying, and those are like pre-fight indicators. If you're standing at a bus stop and it's just you and this other guy, and this guy walks up to you and he's like kind of like, you know, he's doing a little too much moving and he starts pulling his pants up and he's looking around a lot, those are indicators. And you know, those are things you got to be looking for in your day-to-day life. That situational awareness, and that's an episode of its own. But that's what I'm talking about. Those stress inoculations. Those are ways that you can learn some of these. Hey, if you ever watch any fight videos, go to World Star. If you ever watch any World Star video, before people swing, what do? They pull their pants up. Drunk people take their shirts off. Okay, if a drunk dude is walking towards you and he takes his shirt off, you better get ready because it's about to get on. Like, we're about to do this. So that's what I'm saying is that stress inoculation, you might see 2 or 3 fights in your entire life, but if you go to World Star, if you go to Active Self-Protection, if you go to any of these, hey, you can see 20 fights in 10 minutes on YouTube or whatever that platform is. So that stress inoculation, it kind of sort of, you've seen it. That's a big one for me.
If you want to see those fights in real time, you go to your local dirt track racing scene.
Friday night.
On Friday night, guaranteed there'll be a fight. Guaranteed.
Or a mud bog.
Or a mud bog, that's correct. But
just a few less teeth.
So I think we've covered some stuff. This is by far not all inclusive. We didn't hit every single thing. But we wanted to give a nugget just to get guys thinking. You can leave comments or leave something on Instagram if that's something you care to do. But we just wanted to put something out there and talk about a little bit about, you know, there needs to be some logic that goes into it, especially if you're new to carrying. That's something you haven't really just talked about in the past. But I think that's all I got, Hunter. Is that you?
Oh, that's all I've got too.
All right. We'll see you next time. Same bat time, same bat channel.
That's it.
Later.